What is up, everybody? Nick here, and welcome to another episode here on the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. My high pressure fuel pump is starting to fail, so we're going to upgrade it and give ourselves a little bit more power. So what we have going on here is the standard high pressure fuel pump and regulator. And looking underneath, which is hard to tell from here, you can see that there's actually some oil buildup underneath it, so it's leaking somehow. Also, with going wide open after that 3-inch exhaust setup, I'm getting a P0087 code, which is saying low pressure to the fuel rail. So my guess is this is starting to fail and we're going to replace it. Now, instead of replacing it with the standard high pressure fuel pump, we're actually going to be installing a modified LT1 fuel pump. So you can see here that it's actually been attached to a bracket that will allow me to easily connect this to my ecotec. Now, you might be asking yourself, why are you putting an LT1 pump on your car? Easy. The main reason is because after we do this, with additional upgrades, larger turbo, if we decide to upgrade the cams in the future, and if I want to go full E85, this thing can easily handle over 400 wheel horsepower. By handling well over 400 wheel horsepower, I never have to worry about a drop in fuel rail pressure, kind of like what I was experiencing with the 3-inch exhaust setup. So, we're going to be diving in to installing this. First thing we have to do is depressurize the system and go from there. And what we're doing here is we are wrapping the rail line with the rag, pressing on the middle of it to relieve any pressure. Once we see no fuel comes out, we know now it's safe to remove the line. Now here's the fun part. Here's the gasket for the old pump. Notice how we got a bunch of oil. The oil is leaking out, but we look okay. I'm checking to see if there's any kind of metallic shavings, anything like that. It doesn't look like that. So here is what was leaking out of that fuel pump. This car is known, and even the Cobalt, basically the ecotec, the 2.0 ecotec is known for doing this. And leaking, well, actually just mainly oil from this area here. Mainly because they didn't use enough silicone when they put it all together. So what I'm doing now is, since I have all of this part, it's really easy to get to this part of the engine and wipe off any of that dirt, basically oil, that's been dripping slowly out of it. Now, the one thing with this car from the factory is it used to have like a black rubber housing around the high pressure fuel pump, and that was actually to help dampen the noise of how loud it is, because it makes such a high clicking noise because it is a high performance fuel pump, that GM decided, all right, we're going to put a rubber housing around it to kind of help muffle the sound from the driver's seat. Well, the one thing that it also was doing is absorbing all of the oil that would be dripping out from the fuel pump area. Now, you may be asking yourself, like, Nick, why are you doing this if it's only going to do it again? Well, the hope is that with the new fuel pump and the new gasket, that will not be the case. We won't have to worry about it. Alright, so it is the next day. We were able to, in case you couldn't see from the GoPro mounted up there, we have been able to get the new pump installed with the bracket onto the motor. You're going to notice there's a couple things going on here. One, connection for the sensor is pretty taut. So we're going to have to shift this in order to make this connection to the sensor, as well as have clearance here so the fuel line can connect. But if you take a look, so what we got here is, this is actually a cover protecting the fuel connection that goes to our fuel rail, which is that silver threading that you're seeing right over here. So we have to have that connection go from there to there. We may have to make a little bit of an adjustment to that wire, but should be easy to go. So now, as far as the connection to the actual fuel line of the car, we have the fuel line right here propped up just in case if there's any additional fuel in it. But what we have to do is get that connected to this. So there's a couple ways that we can do that. Step number one, if we wanted to use the fuel line extension that I got with the kit, what we would have to do is get a 3/8 male connection that would go to a 6AN female to female connection and would have another 3/8 male connection on the other end to connect here. That would allow us to connect the two fuel lines together, which then would be able to connect to here. What I'm thinking we're gonna try and do is we're actually gonna try and connect the fuel line in the car direct without using the extension. So what we're going to do is mess around with a couple AN fittings and a couple fuel line fittings, which we have over here. So what we have here, pretending as if we are going from the high pressure fuel pump back to the fuel line of the car from left to right. We have a 3/8 female quick connect that goes to a 6AN fitting. We then have a 6AN female to 6AN male fitting, 90 degrees. Same thing in a 45 degree. We also have a 6AN female to female coupler. And then finally, a 6AN to 3/8 male connection. So what we're gonna try and do here is if we're gonna bypass using that fuel extension hose, we're gonna connect here, maybe go with the 90 degree. If we need a little bit more of an angle, we can connect these two, which then would go to the coupler, and then finally this would connect into the fuel line. So let's get started with getting all of that set up. That's not bad, but if we do the 45, which I'm thinking is a good idea. So here's what we're thinking, if this is done correctly. So in order to make sure that we can connect to the sensor correctly, we need to go So what we have here is connection from the wire harness in there, and then what we have is that entire thing, the female connection into the 90 degree, into the 45 degree, into the coupler, which then has that male connection right here. So the fuel line should be able to connect right there without an issue. And even if I move it, I can turn it a little bit just so we have a little more space. That's actually a really cool connection, and it'll go right underneath. You'll see the fuel line will come up and right into there. It shouldn't bump into anything. We should be okay. So now the next step, we're gonna have to get the fuel rail connected down on the bottom there, which is this threading right over here and this here. So let's get it connected to the threading, and let's see if we have to make any adjustments and then go from there. So just to give you an idea of what's going on here. So it's connected to the fuel line. I just finger tightened it, but notice how this, the other end that has to go into the high pressure fuel pump isn't lining up correctly. You're gonna notice that it's not lining up straight, it's going in crooked. So what we have to do is we need to get a tube bender to bend this in 2 points. One is gonna be to the left, the yellow sticker, that's going to bring it out a bit, and then the other is to the right, which is going to straighten it out. So it's a straight input into the high pressure fuel pump. So we're going to put this on hold until we get ourselves a tube bender and then go from there. Was able to bend the line a little bit. You can see here I straightened it out. We're getting closer now, because right now it's a little bit off from this point of view, a little bit off to the left of the input. So if we bend here, that'll bring it outwards a little bit, and then we also need to bend it back to get a little bit closer, because if we take the threading You can see there the threading isn't quite lining up, and we can't quite get it over to line up. We're getting close though. We're getting pretty close. The unfortunate thing is we snapped our bender in half, and I'd rather that break than the line itself. So gonna have to put this on hold until another day, hopefully replace it or just buy a new one, and we'll keep on bending. We are so close now. Ugh, this sucks. See how crooked it is? To make sure I don't break anything or get frustrated, I'm done for today. Fuel pump 1, the one that was originally given to us by Jeffrey, that we had to slightly bend because we had to move the fuel pump a little bit clockwise in order to get it to clear the manifold. Screwed it up so much, one of the threadings wasn't catching, and we didn't want to strip the threading that's on the pump or on our Opal injectors. So then we tried the original, fuel line number 2. Tried a little bit of a different bend, same issue. Couldn't get it to work. We gave up. So we called Jeffrey, and he made us fuel line number 3. As you can see, he has heat bent the line to make sure he can make the appropriate bends to get it to fit. I've already test fit it, no, it does fit, but just for the sake of this video, let's go forth with putting it back on the car. So here we go, one-handed. First we're gonna do is connect the line to our Opal injectors. And as you can see, it is threaded and good to go on both sides. So now what I have to do is just tighten both sides and hope that it's in a place where it's not going to leak fuel. We won't really know until it's in there and fully tight. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll be right back. Woo! That looks bad, dude. That's not good. Not seeing anything, no fuel leaks, nothing crazy. LT1 Corvette fuel pump on a 2.0 ecotec engine. Alright, so I don't know if you can see it from there. It's probably pretty difficult, but there is a minor leak right around this area. So, I don't know if it is this connection here where my middle finger is, or that connection down there. I'm pretty sure it's this one here. Unfortunately, I believe I would need a 18mm wrench to fit that. The largest one I have is a 17. So I'm going to have to get an 18 and really snug that down and secure it, and then we'll test it again, make sure there isn't any leaks. As long as there isn't any leaks while the car is idling, then the next step is to get it up to operating temperature, do a couple revs, make sure we're good, and then we can go from there. The best part about this, there are no leaks between the fuel rail and the pump itself, so I know that's nice and secure. Don't have to worry about bending that, adjusting, or anything. We only got to mess with right around here to fix wherever that leak is. My guess is it's this connection right here. Go ahead, a little bit. You can give it a little more. Okay, do it again. Do it again. Alright, go again. Give it a lot this time. Do that again. Alright, so we were able to test everything and make sure nothing is leaking. There was a minor leak there, but we were able to tighten everything. Had my wife come out, rev the car a little bit, and it's good to go. We're not seeing any leaks, so it looks like this has been a success. The next step is we're just going to have to take it on the road, drive it around a little bit, pretty much just drive it around town, just because we want to make sure that if it is going to leak that we are close by and not anywhere on a highway, nothing like that, in case we do have to make an adjustment or fix anything. But it looks like this is a success. We are good to go. We have just installed an LT1 high pressure fuel pump on a 2.0 ecotec. And that is it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to continue to see the build process of this car, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. See ya.